proven fact that education is the bedrock of all societies. Countries of the world, Nigeria inclusive, recognize the indispensability of formal teaching and learning, and prioritizing education remains mandatory. Today, September 8, being World Literacy Day, calls to question the changes that have altered this sector on a global scale. It is for this reason that UNESCO decided on the theme literacy, teaching and learning in the COVID-19 crisis and beyond. Our outlook on Panorama, coming to you live from the NTA Lagos Network Center, is dedicated to this ongoing discourse. I am Dotson Ogmiemi. Welcome on board. ECOWAS leaders have resolved to collaborate more effectively towards deepening the economic and monetary integration, as well as consolidating political stability, peace and security. Taking this position at the end of an extraordinary summit in Niger Republic, leaders expressed gratitude to President Muhammadu Buhari for providing in the coordinated strategic response to fight against COVID-19 in the sub-region. State House correspondent Adamu Sambo has the details.
The ECOWAS leaders, who had earlier considered a situation report submitted by President Muhammadu Buhari on COVID-19, noted with delight the improvement recorded in containment efforts, but urged member countries to remain vigilant to avoid a second wave of the pandemic.
It was very well received, it was applauded, it was comprehensive, and it dealt with all the complications that you could expect in an enterprise like that. And they also appreciated the effort he made to help to distribute COVID-19 relief materials, PPEs, ventilators and so on to all West African countries. That was particularly pointed out, and the President was thanked for that.
On the security situation, the summit expressed serious concern over the increasing incidence of terrorist attacks in the region, resulting into deaths, injuries and internal displacement.
There is a peace fund for the sub-region to be more self-reliant in the fight against terrorism, and they want to raise over $1 billion for that peace fund. And they recognize Nigeria's contribution already, $100 million that we've contributed in that fight. So again, they were extremely grateful to Mr. President for his commitment. I think that what we saw was the commitment of all the leaders to the ECOWAS vision and roadmap for greater regional integration and greater solidarity.
The ECOWAS leaders also discussed at length the contentious single currency program and noted with satisfaction that both the French and English-speaking West African countries are now on the same page.
It was a contentious issue because if you recall, December 2019, the authority of the heads of government of ECOWAS agreed at Abuja that all the countries must flow together, and until they comply with all the convergence criteria, that no country can be allowed to migrate into the ECO currency. But unfortunately, what happened was that on the same day as the ECOWAS meeting was ending in December 2019, President Ouattara went ahead to say that, the Francophone were migrating by June 2020 under different conditions that were set by the heads of government. But at today's meeting, the issue came up, and I'd like to put it mildly. They accepted that they made a mistake and that there is a need for them to now stick with the already agreed program and the timelines, as well as the conditionalities that have been put in place for this program.
The socio-economic and political situation in Mali was similarly revisited, with the heads of state and government insisting on a 12-month transition program to be executed by civilian leaders.
There are going to be about 4 elections to come in the sub-region, and so they realize that some of these could be problematic, and Mr. President, also made the point that it was important to have peaceful, fair, transparent elections in the sub-region. We've seen how in Mali now they've gone back to the old ways of coup d'etat. and so that we really have to be careful to maintain that reputation for which ECOWAS is known, stable political environment.
Meanwhile, President Nana Akufo-Addo of the Republic of Ghana was elected as the new ECOWAS chairman, while the candidature of Nigeria's Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala has been endorsed for election as Director General of the World Trade Organization. President Muhammadu Buhari has since returned to Abuja. Adamu Sambu, NTA News.
Students in the global community have been out of the classroom for months following the advent of COVID-19 pandemic. This has resulted in many nations adopting safety measures against the virus. Hawal Yusuf Jibo gives us an insight into what the new normal with regards to formal education is all about.
It is a known fact that a nation cannot develop beyond the level of its literacy, as learning is essential for social and human development. It bequeaths individuals with the requisite skills for specialization and empowerment. However, with the devastating effects of the COVID-19 pandemic on education globally, literacy is being threatened. Thus, the theme for this year's World Literacy Day is aptly tagged Literacy, Teaching and Learning in the COVID-19 Crisis. Teaching and learning are now governed by a different set of rules.
The most fundamental is that we must adopt new and innovative ways of promoting literacy at all levels of society. By this I mean, in particular, we must go digital and embrace the IT revolution. This calls for massive investments in infrastructure and software, hardware and software. We need to equip our young learners with all the necessary computer facilities they need, and thought may be given to liberalizing the import of IT-related infrastructure.
Winner Friday is a secondary school graduate who dreams of being a student in one of the tertiary institutions in Nigeria.
Going to lectures, meeting my lecturers, having classes and all that. I just can't wait. I hope this ends soon so schools can resume and I can also go to school.
Educationists believe that the bottlenecks caused by the pandemic will not truncate Nigeria's quest for full literacy.
Teachers and educational administrators should be involved on-the-job training so that they should be able to tackle this issue as the schools are about to be open.
Our service providers, they need to be up and doing, because the majority of what we are doing, what we are paying for, we are paying for render services. You recharge, you are talking, you will not hear, you put on your data, it will just be rolling, and it will be taking up your data.
World Literacy Day was declared in 1965 by UNESCO to highlight the importance of literacy to individuals, communities, and societies at large. In Lagos, Hawal Yusuf Jibo, NTA News.
Joining us to discuss literacy in a COVID-19 world is Dr. Yakubu Mandafia John, a lecturer from the University of Bradford, United Kingdom. Thank you for joining us on the program.
Thank you for having me.
All right, now my very first question to you is, how would you define the new normal in teaching and learning?
Well, thank you for that question. They call it the new normal because of the pandemic, and teaching and learning has, changed drastically in the past few months. However, teaching and learning had always been progressive. It's just that it became sudden in the past few months when the lockdown started. It's progressive in the sense that the traditional method of teaching, which is commonly prevalent in Nigeria, actually evolved in the Western world from being a traditional method of teaching, where the teacher is the custodian of all knowledge, and teaching is done in a one way. The teacher teaches and the student listens, and all knowledge comes from the teacher. But in the Western world, learning and teaching has been a progressive venture. It has progressed from the traditional methods to the student-centered learning. And there are various ways of learning, except for my country, Nigeria, where we're still in that form of the traditional learning. However, the new normal, like they call it, has created a new approach to learning. And I think it is time for my country, Nigeria, to begin to take advantage of what the situation is. Usually when there are challenges, it is good to respond accordingly so that you are on top of the challenge. Well, it is the new normal.
Now, you just gave us a practical example of what applies in the Western world and what we currently have in Nigeria. How effective has this been? Is there a measurement criteria where we can use to understand how effective this online teaching has been in Nigeria in the past couple of months? And how has the effect been in the Western world?
Well, thank you for that question. It's online teaching is not a new thing. It's been there for many years. And even in Nigeria, we have that online approach, particularly when you look at the open universities, they've had online teaching. Yeah. In the few months gone by, my understanding of the online teaching in the Western world, especially during the pandemic, has been quite effective. One of the ways to measure is to look at student feedback. And here in the UK, immediately the shutdown started, schools went absolutely online with both assessment, exams, teaching and learning, and even some form of practical works that are done, via simulation models, simulation software, and all that. Yeah, so students have really said they haven't lost much except for the student experience. Well, I've had several correspondence with many people in Nigeria. It is not the same in Nigeria. Currently, ASU is on strike, so the tertiary institution is completely shut down, so they were not even part of the issue of the online learning. But for primary and secondary schools, some private schools had some form of online. But again, there are lots of challenges. For instance, the challenge of infrastructure, internet availability, and even the quality of internet, connectivity. The support they have, for instance, if there are issues with the internet connectivity, what support do they have to resolve those things in quick time? So these are some of the challenges. But I can say that in the Western world, they have coped very well, and learning has progressed, which is not the same in Nigeria. There are measures to actually determine whether an approach is, has yielded results. Like I said, when you compare the online approach to teaching and the traditional method, there are universities or there are institutions that are designed to present or to, deliver just online content. And so you would measure the performance based on the purpose those institutions are created. But for those that are traditional, like in the case of the Nigerian system, that measure would be based on the fact that lectures are delivered and learning is done the traditional way, which wasn't the case. Like I said, schools were shut down and nothing was going on. In the Western world, school went on. Students in secondary schools or high school, like they call it, and those in the primary school, they were participating on online, the Zoom platform, the Skype for business, conference, Microsoft Teams platforms were used to deliver lectures to pupils, and various platforms. Sometimes they printed the documents and then they send it to parents, and parents go to schools to also collect some, activities for a week or for 2 or even for a month for the pupils. And I think they've not lost much, so to say, in the Western world. They were able to cope with it.
Now, Dr. Yakubu, let me break you for a minute and ask you, how can online learning enhance literacy in Nigeria?
Well, online learning can impact greatly in Nigeria because of several benefits it affords, the Western world. So it can be replicated in Nigeria. For instance, the carrying capacity of the Nigerian university is small compared to the number of students coming from the secondary school. So you find that a lot of time people lobby to get admission into the university, which is not the case in the Western world. In the Western world, we advertise universities for students to come in. Now, in Nigeria, some parents even bribe to get admission for their words, So online platform would accord, some platforms, some universities for those who are not able to go into the traditional system, the university. And according to Pollack in 2018, the Australasian marketing journal, he said that online learning has the potential to make education affordable and accessible. So you can imagine those who live in the villages where, they do not have access to some form of good schools. Once we have the infrastructure, the internet connectivity, electricity is available, online learning would definitely, accord virtually everyone the opportunity to learn and become literate. Another advantage online learning can create is it can give people access to the free platforms, to resources, to materials, to some libraries that offer free materials, and students can go on those materials and learn effectively.
All right, Dr. Yakubu, as the world is celebrating the International Literacy Day, about literacy in the formal sense of it, in today's world, is it still somewhat compulsory for students, individuals to get classroom education, as it were?
Well, classroom education is important, especially in Nigeria, because the system is designed around classroom education. Now, if you got your education outside the classroom, how do you progress into the jobs? Nigeria is basically a certification-driven society.
Okay.
So classroom education is important where you get certificates. Now, not to undermine formal education, informal education. Informal education is as key as the formal education. But we have a system that do not really reward the informal aspect of it. Infrastructure is also not there for people who toe the line of the informal platforms and to develop themselves. For instance, those who acquire skills. I give you an example of one who is a welder, for instance, who went to learn, how to weld. Now, electricity is not there. How can he weld? You can't weld without electricity. The gas is expensive. You can't weld even if you're going to use the oxyacetylene kind of welding. So it's challenging. Most of the workforce in Nigeria are certificate driven. So classroom education in Nigeria, it is. Yeah. In the Western world, it may not be the same.
All right.
So I think classroom education may not be compulsory in that sense, but it is necessary in a system like Nigeria.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Yakubu Madafia John, lecturer, University of Bradford, United Kingdom. Thank you for your thoughts and insights today on the program.
Thank you for having me. Have a great time.
And you're still watching Panorama, coming to you from the Lagos Network Center. Let's now take a break. More reports when we return.
Slavery is an evil practice abolished all over the world over 200 years ago. But today, human traffickers are selling human beings as slaves in Africa. It is your responsibility to make sure that you and the people you know do not fall into slavery. Don't believe fake promises of jobs abroad.
People went to say Libya, Italy no use you when they carry me on top water. 4 days now they lock me for inside house, no food, no water. I nearly die. Now God, when me heaven and earth, now save me. If you get 1 naira for Nigeria, you get junior one, you say you no get papa, you no get mama, that make you come out. I beg go they do farm work. You better pass person when enter road.
Don't accept to travel to Europe through the Sahara Desert. You may be walking into slavery. be a slave.
This is a public service announcement brought to you by NTA.
Glad to have you back. The Nigeria Center for Disease Control has confirmed 155 new cases of coronavirus in the country as at the 7th of September, bringing the total number of confirmed cases to 55,160. The new cases were recorded in 15 states and the FCT. The breakdown shows that Lagos recorded the daily highest with 42 new cases, followed by Plateau with 25, Rivers 16, Ebonyi 10, Abia, Ogun and the FCT have 9 cases each. Osun has 7, Katsina and Kaduna have 6 each. Ekiti and Taraba have 4 cases each, while Edo has 3. Anambra and Akwa Ibom have 2 each, while Kano has 1 new case. The total number of patients discharged so far stands at 43,231. Sadly, 1,061 deaths have been recorded. Now, President Muhammadu Buhari warmly felicitates with the Owele of Ichida, Gilbert Chikelu, on his 90th birthday. President Buhari recognizes Owele Chikelu's significant contributions in different fields of endeavor to Nigeria's development, especially his devotion to duty as an economist, administrator, Federal Permanent Secretary of over 10 years and Minister of the Federal Republic. The President commends the elder statesman and community leader for leading his community with dignity, wisdom and respect for constituted authority, praying God Almighty to grant the nonagenarian continued good health and joy for many more years. Worried by the spate of road crashes involving trucks conveying petroleum products across the country, a situation that often leads to tragic consequences, 2 key agencies are working harmoniously towards arresting the development. Lane Lineke reports on the partnership for this objective between the Federal Road Safety Corps and the Department of Petroleum Resources in Lagos.
Safety on major roads across the country remains critical to the development of the nation's economy. To ensure that movement of persons and goods are hitch-free, the synergy between the FRSC and DPR is aimed at closing loopholes that enable mishaps on the highways and other routes across the nation. Reckless driving and disregard for professionalism by most petroleum tanker drivers were ticked as some of the reasons for minor and fatal crashes that occur on a regular basis.
All articulated vehicles, fleet owners must register. So if you don't register on RSS portal, they must not be allowed to load.
A lot of consequence management that we use to deter. So regular sensitization, then development and deployment of enlightenment program, which like scooping, mass media, we are doing it in many Nigerian languages.
Inscription of vehicle registration numbers on the tanks of trucks for easy identification and periodic checks of haulage vehicles at loading points by Task Force Committee was named as one of the measures to check the menace. With this mutual agreement between the FRSC and DPR, optimism is high that road accidents caused by instability of some petroleum truck drivers will be reduced. In Lagos, Lynn Lenake, NTA News.
The rehabilitation of Rigachikun Bridge is taking new dimensions with the passing of days. The engineers are waking up to new challenges which threaten the integrity of the 2 bridges. Abdullahi Mohammed reports.
Work has progressed on the Rigachikun Bridge. We have observed that the engineers have successfully excavated the wet soil that form part of the transition base, which caved in about 10 days ago. What they have brought in now are boulders and concrete to refill that transition base. And over there, we have reported about 2 days ago that the other transition base of the same bridge is also caving in. But this morning, we have observed that they have been able to excavate the wet soil there, awaiting refill.
What remains mind-boggling lies on the bridge which carries the traffic while the other one is closed for repairs. Its transition base is under threat. More worrisome is that its integrity is shaken and it is beginning to collapse.
The engineers have carried out repair work on the transition base of the only bridge that carries the traffic for now. But unfortunately, this morning, it has also given way. In Kaduna, Abdullah Muhammad, NTA News.
Up next is Sports Update.
Football activities and other team sport can resume behind closed